Today we are going to talk about rate and unit rate. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to find the rate and unit rate in a variety of situations. We're going to start off with two vocabulary words. It is incredibly important that you do make sure you understand the difference between these vocabulary words. If you have any questions moving forward about them, or you just want to talk them through, please make sure to reach out. Okay, so the first word is rate. We've already learned about ratios and that they are comparing. This gets a little bit more specific. A rate is a ratio comparing different units. So it's specifically when we are comparing two different kinds of things. I think you'll see some examples of that in a few minutes. A unit rate is even more specific because it's comparing your different units, but it's comparing a quantity to one of another. So your denominator must always be one. Unit rate. We want to know about one unit of something. When we are using rates and unit rates, we do always include our units as well. That is different from when we were working just with the broader topic of ratios. To help us with our units, we always, when we're using rate and unit rate, always starting with a word ratio. And I will take a moment to explain what those are. So let's get started with this situation, and I believe that'll help us clear the difference up between rate and unit rate. In this situation, we are paying $27 for 3 pizzas. Situation, you go to the pizza place, you pay $27, you get 3 pizzas. So we are comparing money to pizzas. Now, my word ratio is my guiding light for the rest of this situation. It is like my blueprint, okay? I must have it. I'm comparing money to pizza. So if I write money first to pizza, then the rest of the situation should follow suit. Anytime I'm writing a ratio, rate, or unit rate in regards to this situation, money needs to come first. It'll help keep me organized. Okay. All right, so that's my word ratio. All right. Well, in this situation, I just simply want to know the rate that I paid for my pizza. So I paid $27 to 3 pizzas. My rate is simply that, $27 to 3 pizzas. Now, more typically, we write rates and unit rates in the fraction form. So we will start to get in the habit of that. But I did want to make sure you could see this is what we use more commonly with ratios. So that's it for a rate. $27 to 3 pizzas, that's my rate. My unit rate, again, gets a little bit more specific, and that my denominator must be 1. So we need to find some equivalent ratios here. I go back up to my rate, and I know that to get a unit rate, I need to have 1 down here in my denominator. How do I get from 3 to 1? Well, I divide by 3. I divide 3 divided by 3, which will get me 1 pizza. Now, I need to make sure that everything stays equivalent, so I also have to divide my numerator by 3. 27 divided by 3 gets me 9. Therefore, the unit rate, the rate for 1 pizza, is $9 to 1 pizza. Okay, so my rate just gets pulled from my situation, and then I need to divide or sometimes multiply to get me 1 in the bottom, 1 in my denominator for a unit rate. Unit rate always has 1 in the denominator. All right. If you have questions about the difference between rate and unit rate, feel free to pause, shoot me an email, reach out, do what you got to do. Okay. Otherwise, let's keep going. We're going to try writing a rate here. We have a double number line example, and it is showing us where we earn points for successfully hitting notes in a music video game. So our word ratio here would be points to notes. Okay, points to notes would be our word ratio. Now we can pull out a rate from this. For example, 600 points to 4 notes. That would be our rate. Another example of a rate would be 450 points to 3 notes. Please pause the video here. Can you write me another rate? Write me a rate. My next question is, where is the unit rate on this double number line? Good. 150 points for 1 note is the unit rate because 1 would be our denominator. Now, this also can be considered a rate in a more broad sense. If you said that this was your rate, it is a rate, but it is also a unit rate more specifically. Okay, so sometimes we'll be given ratio tables or double number lines, and you can just directly pull a rate from there. Next, we need to practice finding a unit rate. When we are finding a unit rate, we will follow these steps, always starting with our word ratio first, then writing our rate that we pull from the situation. This just gets pulled from the situation. We show our work that keeps our ratios equivalent, and then we have our unit rate. So we need to see all 4 of these steps every single time. So here's an example. It says Tim ran 22 meters in 4 seconds. So I'm comparing meters and seconds. I write my word ratio first, which would be meters to seconds. Simply the words first. No numbers here, just my words that I am comparing. Then I move on to the rate, which I pull from my situation. Well, there's 22 meters in 4 seconds. I keep my meters on top because my meters come on top in my word ratio, that blueprint. Now, somehow I need to get from 4 seconds to 1 second. To get 4 to be 1, I divide it by itself. So 4 divided by 4 gets me 1. Because I divide the denominator by 4, I also need to divide the numerator by 4. 22 divided by 4 gets me 5 and 5/10. This is where a calculator might come in handy. I do recommend you have one for this lesson. So we keep our meters on top, 5 and 5/10 meters per 1 second. So the situation, the answer to the unit rate to this situation is Tim runs 5 and 5/10 meters in 1 second. Okay, so in 4 seconds he runs 22 meters. In 1 second he runs 5.5 meters. So far, so good? All right. Now we have a situation where it says, I drove 198 miles with 6 gallons of gas. This situation down here. I drove 198 miles with 6 gallons of gas. Could you pause the video and write me a word ratio? What are the things that I am comparing here? Awesome. So I am writing miles to gallons. My word ratio is simply that, miles to gallons. Take a moment here. What is the rate? Remember the rate I just simply pull from the situation. I drove 198 miles with 6 gallons of gas. What is my rate? Good. 198 miles over 6 gallons. Next, I need to show my work. What am I going to do to get from a denominator of 6 to a denominator of 1? What will I divide by here? My denominator is 6, so I will divide by 6. And lastly, can you go ahead and pause your video, do the math, and give me a unit rate? I want to see an entire unit rate. It can be written like this in that fraction form or written out in a sentence. Great. So our unit rate is that if I drove 198 miles with 6 gallons of gas, with 1 gallon of gas, I drive 33 miles.